Okay, let's spend a few minutes now taking a look at critical characteristics of information. Most of this should be a refresh for anybody because this is a 4,000 level course, so this should be just a quick refresher and overview. Um, so just bearing in mind that when we talk about what we need to do for this class, the lens and the perspective that you should always be thinking about is, this is 4,200. This is perimeter defense, and so we're thinking about network protection from the edge primarily, and then also if we have segmented our organization into different VLANs, which large-scale organizations almost always do. Then how do I protect an individual segment, right? And so when we start thinking about that, then we start, let me put this into presentation mode here, right? Then we start filtering through the more generic processes of, things that we know that we need to do for information security as a whole, right? We talk about NetSec, we talk about physical sec, we talk about OPSEC personnel, so forth and so on. So, we fall back to the tried and true CIA triangle, which is making sure that we are able to do the following three things with regards to information assets that we're charged with protecting: making sure they stay confidential, making sure that the information has integrity to it, and the key thing, and this is one that we tend to lose focus on as security professionals, and it troubles me when I hear people say this, but all too frequently I hear security people say, in industry, well, I'm in security, I don't do fill in the blank. And there's a slide that we'll get to there in a little while, but this is a wake-up call for you, or it should be, is that if you don't do widgets, then you don't have a job. If your organization builds widgets for a living, then yeah, you're in the widget business. Just so happens that you're tasked with protecting information assets, but you're not in the security business. Hate to break it to you. You are in the widget business, and your job is to help protect those widgets and the things that the organization needs to produce those widgets. That's your job. So what does that tie into? Availability. All too often, I hear people in the industry really badmouth their own employers, talking about, well, if they only listen to me, we would be better off. I've got to lock this down. These people don't know what they're doing with regards to security. I know better than they do. Yeah, once again, I hate to break it to you, but if you're not building widgets, then your job doesn't exist anymore. So just kind of bear that in mind. But again, we'll talk more about that later on. So, the basics. What do we know about the information? It's got to be available. If it's not available, it's useless. And so when we talk about availability, you should always be thinking about ways to say yes, not ways to say no. Yes, I can make that available. We'll figure out a way to secure the asset as best as possible, lock it down, and you may have to accept some risk. But yeah, we'll make it available because, again, what you need to understand is that if you don't make that data available to the employees within that organization, then it's useless, and that means the organization can't do what it needs to do. Right? We always want to make sure that the information is accurate. We want to make sure it's authentic, and make sure that we can, as best we can, make sure that the data stays confidential, doesn't get into any unauthorized hands. I want to make sure that the data also has some integrity, and the utility really is really a byproduct of the process through which employees interact with data to really turn it into information. And so the utility is what the organization gains when when workers interact with the information, process it in some way to gain some type of value for it from the information to benefit the organization. Possession, make sure that somebody's in charge of it and they know what they're doing with it. The old Macomber cube. What do we say about this? It's been around forever. We talk about it in pretty much every course. Remember, it's a three-way axis, right? We're concerned about data in storage, we're concerned about data in processing, and we're concerned about data in transmission. So data at rest, data in motion, and then what's happening with it processing-wise to get some benefit out of it. Right? We come back to the CIA triangle on the vertical axis, And then the softer skills that, or the softer processes that we need to put into place, hopefully, to make sure that data stays in the shape that we need it to, available for who we need it to, and it doesn't get exposed. And we do that through the implementation of policy, user education, and technology. All right, so again, I come back to this because I'm a real big believer in this, and we do have a problem with this with some security folks and out in our field. Okay, you have to strike a balance, and the balance has to be between locking it down, locking the data down, while making sure that the people who need to get access to it are still able to do so. Because again, we come back to the simple fact that if employees in an organization cannot get access to that data, or we make it so difficult to get access to that data that they start looking for ways around our controls, then we have failed. Okay? Again, our job is to say yes. We say yes. We'll make this available for you. Then we figure out a way to lock it down as best we can, given the needs of the employees in the organization to get access to that stuff. And so that's the balancing act that we're talking about. Okay, make all your reasonable attempts, right? And again, this, I wish I could burn this slide into everybody's memory, right? Business needs come first, plain and simple. Period. The end. Our job is not to say no. Our job is to not stand around and complain about the organization that we work with and how we as security folks are misunderstood. I got news for you. We as security folks do that to ourselves. We walk in with hardline attitudes of, I know what's best. I know how to protect this data. I know who needs what. No, you don't. You're a resource. You're an asset. Your job is to make that asset available to the employees to do whatever it is they need to do with it, and then protect it as best you can, given the circumstances that you're faced with in the organization, relative to dollars and cents that may be available, relative to existing policies, relative to existing corporate culture, technical abilities, both of the hardware and software that we have inside the organization, as well as yours. Okay, so the widget comes first, plain and simple. You always keep that in mind. You always keep in mind the fact that that it's your job to try and figure out a way to say yes instead of a way to say no. And you work collaboratively with people, you're going to get a long, long way in this field. That's all for this particular section of our conversation